A predator would probably want to take me before taking you because I'm smaller. Because, okay, if you want to use that term.
Time for the latest installment of Change My Mind, where we rationalize our positions on controversial issues. This time, we set up shop at the Dallas Women's March to take on the topic of male privilege.
You're benefiting from white male privilege.
Your three boys have hit the American trifecta of privilege. They are white, straight males.
Yeah. Women are sent off to college with rape whistles, while men are not. Women who have to take extra care walking down a street to be safe. You know, it's a sort of invasion of boundaries of women that men do not experience.
What can men do leaving here? Be better.
I'm not convinced. But what do you think? What defines privilege, and are males, particularly white males, in 2020 more privileged than anybody else? Let me know in the comments section. Now, I should note we did have a few disturbances, namely violent assaults from two transgender individuals. But you can see more on that if you click the video in the box above. On to our first productive conversation with a locked and loaded Amari. Men of quality support women's equality. All right.
That's
Your
right.
name is Omari.
That's right.
What's, can I see your other sign?
Sure.
Your hate does not make America great.
That's right.
Well, I think we both agree. No hate would make a country great.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean that anyone who votes for Donald Trump is hateful, does it?
That's true. It doesn't mean that.
Okay,
no.
good. All right. Because, a lot of these, that's why we sit down and do this, to try and cut through the sound bites and signage so we can actually have a conversation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you sitting down.
Well,
So
on the
I don't
point
know
of,
how familiar you are with kind of what we do.
not at all. But
Okay.
I do.
So let me brief you with that.
But we did have this instance where
Yes.
you were saying you don't have white privilege. There's a sign saying there's no such thing.
I think it's male privilege.
Right. Oh, sorry, I mixed them up. Does white privilege not exist also?
Well, today we're talking about male privilege, but do you think you have male privilege?
I do actually.
Okay. All right.
And I think they're the same, root cause, which
Okay.
is the people that have the most power.
Let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
this is kind of what we do with the Change My Mind. Is
All right.
the idea is to not be a bumper sticker slogan or just a sign.
Okay.
It's the opportunity to rationalize our positions on controversial topics.
Oh, okay.
I do not believe
Wait,
that male privilege is a thing.
Are you saying that you're?
So if I can just finish my point.
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
I don't believe that male privilege, as it's presented, particularly from the ilk of folks who are here today, is a thing.
Okay.
I don't believe that we live in a rape culture. If you disagree with me, you are more than welcome to change my mind. So it seems that we can start with male privilege.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, are you saying that this whole setup isn't to just prove you're right and prove the other side wrong and increase your viewership?
Well, I don't know. You present your argument, and we'll see.
Wait,
so
but no,
I'll let you
you
talk.
set everything up. So I
Sure,
mean, is
yeah.
that not the goal for you?
No, the goal is for everyone to see something that's unedited and not a cable news sparring
Oh, okay,
match.
yeah.
So none of this
Cool.
will be edited. Everything that you say
Yeah.
will 100% air.
All right.
And I won't interrupt you or cut you off. So
Wow,
you're more than welcome
cool.
to change my mind.
All right. And it's Cooper.
Crowder. No, Cooper was the other
Oh,
gentleman
right.
we spoke
Sorry,
with. I just said
Crowder.
utter, like I'm a hello mother, hello fodder.
All right, Crowder.
So
let's do this.
good.
I appreciate the candor too.
Oh,
This is
great.
a positive setup you got going on.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's
male
sarcasm
privilege.
or not. I don't
no,
know.
not
how
at
to-
all.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So
male privilege.
let's
I don't
get
think
in
it's a
there.
real thing.
Male privilege.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you got where you are and you've got this power, a woman could have done it, but it would have been a lot harder for her. So male privilege is this idea that your life is not, being a male doesn't mean you don't have difficulty or challenge.
Sure.
It just means that your gender is not one of the things making your life more challenging.
Okay. And that is exclusive to males.
I mean, there's all kinds of different privileges, but
Okay.
but in terms of gender,
So there could be
male is
female privilege as well.
No, not really. No,
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so then how would you, I guess, sort of substantiate that?
Substantiate.
Yeah, why?
Like,
What
so, like,
allows you to make the presupposition that my life inherently, as a male, is easier than a female, and that privilege only exists for males? See, that's where I have a disconnect.
All right. I mean, I could pull up some stats, but I mean, generally we know
free
that
to.
women make less money than men.
Really? Okay.
Women are the victims of rape and sexual violence at the hands of men much more often.
Okay.
than the other way around.
Right.
And you kind of just go down the list of the ways that women get screwed over in our society, and that
I appreciate.
Yeah,
By the way, you're making a great. I want you to continue. You're making a great case. So it was paid more,
yeah.
raped more women.
Yeah.
And please, continue. But I just want to make sure I
mean,
keep track of them. 'Cause these are great. This is the whole point. I just want to hear what you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't looked at the whole list of just sort of, even just.
That's a good start.
It's something as simple as the lived experience of women.
Right.
Where my wife, she would have loved to have this conversation with you, but her job prevents her from doing that. She can't be on camera. But her experience is she walks down the street, and depending on the men that are there, she's objectified. She's turned into a sexual object by a group of men who are saying, "Oh yeah, I want to do this and that to your body."
That's a really valid point. So walking down the street.
Yeah, just not feeling safe in your own skin or feeling like you can be a full human being. Whereas me, I don't have to worry what I wear when I walk out the house. I don't have to worry if I have a tank top that my cleavage is showing and that I'm going to get unwanted attention.
Good point.
So that's Crowder. You're great. You're great. This is a.
Well, I'm sitting. I just want to listen first and hear you kind of make. Because I think maybe where we would agree is legally there are no recognized rights that men enjoy in 2020. I don't know if you do that. I still keep saying 2019.
Yeah.
There are no legally recognized rights afforded to men in 2020, not afforded to women. So we would agree on that, and you're talking more so societal sort of ramifications.
Well, and actually, I'm not sure about that. women got the right to vote in 1920, so we're 100 years on from that, so they can vote.
Yeah.
But what other things are in there that, I'm not sure that legally there aren't biases against women still.
Yeah.
There may be, there may not be.
I don't think there are.
Okay. Well,
and that's what I'm saying. If you have some, I would be willing to hear.
No, I don't have any, but I would be curious to look and see. So maybe, for example, if you, this whole abortion thing, if you have a child and the child isn't healthy because you were taking drugs at the time because you're an addict or whatever, and then you get thrown in jail for child abuse. The woman's getting thrown in jail. The man who impregnated her is not getting thrown in jail. Maybe that's something to look at as far as a standard that impacts women.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little
differently than it does men.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No, go ahead.
Do you mean that if a mother abuses her child and goes to jail, you believe the father should go to jail?
No, I'm saying in terms of prenatal drug use, and you have a child born with some or that's not healthy because they were doing drugs. They were doing drugs, or they just didn't get the right prenatal care, and that's considered abuse. I'm not really sure. I'm just saying.
Well, I just want to make sure that
because if we had this conversation 100 years ago and a day, then it would be like, well, clearly women are legally not don't have the same rights
as far as voting.
Yeah, for example. But what other examples could there be that we don't pay attention to or aren't as pivotal as the right to vote?
So I want to make sure that I understand too. You brought up the idea of women are raped more often.
Yeah.
The idea that women are paid less, being able to walk down the street. And I just wanted to see where we find common ground. Sounds to me like today we probably agree that it's not really a legal issue as far as rights afforded. You're talking more about societal issues, which I think is a valid point.
Right.
I think
which
it sort of
is
discredits the
person issue, really.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we treat our neighbors and our friends or people we don't know?
How do we treat our women?
Yeah,
I think it's really important.
Yep.
Before we get to those, I know you mentioned women getting the right to vote. How did that happen?
My understanding is that there was women suffragists who went out and marched just like we're doing now, so that women could cast a ballot.
Right. And was that most women
that did that?
Yeah.
I don't think most women were out there, but I don't know.
Okay.
I wish I were as good at. Do you know?
Well, I'm questioning because I don't understand. Like you were saying that men obviously were in positions of power when you first sat down.
Yeah.
And
look at that.
Yeah.
Congress is.
Well, hold on, I'm going back to when they got the right to vote.
Okay.
So how does a woman cast a ballot to get the right to vote if she can't vote?
She has to agitate. She has to.
So who gave the right to vote? I guess is my question.
Who gave them the right to vote?
Who switched the law so that women could vote?
Well, the men in power must have decided
Okay.
that they should do that. Yeah.
Good for them. Progressive men at that point.
I don't know if I could pat them on the back. I mean, it should have been done. It should have been like the.
Well,
this is
someone
how
had to do
is.
it. Don't deserve a pat in the back
Well,
at all?
someone did not have to say that women were inferior in the first place to not
Right.
be able to vote.
So that's why.
And those were the men that started it. And those men should have fixed it before it became a problem.
Sure.
So we just did as men what we should have done in the first place.
Right.
So I don't know if we get any special kudos for.
Not we,
for-
but the men who passed
That's
it.
what I don't know if they get any special kudos for doing what.
I think so.
men
I
should
think
have
when
done.
someone does something right,
I
they
think
should be
it-
praised for it.
I don't know about that because
No?
yeah, something right. You're righting a wrong.
Yeah, I
So,
think that people should be praised for doing that.
I'm not sure.
It sounds to me like you're trying to right wrongs today of social justice, no?
Yeah, I am, but I don't want to be pat on the back for doing what I should be doing. I want to lift up the people that are being oppressed.
Sure.
And when they step up, and I'm supporting them, they deserve the credit for the change that they forced us to make on
Okay.
their behalf.
I agree.
believe. Not that it's bad that these men
I think
signed
all
the
of them
right
deserve
laws.
the praise. I think it's a good
All right.
thing. I think it's a good thing,
All
for
right.
example. I think people, I think the fact that, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation should have been done much longer before that.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And
well,
I think that at the
certainly-
time-
that's a good point. I
think that
certainly
we should
appreciate
praise
Lincoln for
someone
that.
like that. Yeah.
I certainly appreciate it.
Well, those
But
are good points, though. Those
but
are good points.
again, even Lincoln, I don't say, oh, what a great man. If he didn't exist and he hadn't done that, I could still be in chains right now. So of course
Right.
I appreciate it, but I don't want to.
Or if you were born in Africa, you could still be in chains right now.
I suppose,
in the Middle East.
or
Qatar.
Europe, or I don't know, anywhere.
There's slavery all across the world.
This is true.
Yeah, it's
so,
terrible.
Point being, don't raise up this man because he used his privilege for good above the folks that, in the down, that were one down and rose up.
Yeah.
Put them first. Let's put the attention where it belongs. The people who have fought for their rights and gotten their rights and pushed the more progressive among the oppressors.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What if, let's say Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, right? Let's say Abraham Lincoln outlawed slavery, and let's say slaves themselves didn't want to be free. This is not the case. I'm just saying a hypothetical, right?
Where's this going? This is going
Well, I'm saying with
straight
the
to hell.
women's suffrage movement,
Okay.
wouldn't those people deserve to be praised if, for example, the overwhelming majority of women didn't want the right to vote? They were the ones advocating against it, not men. So wouldn't the men deserve the praise if they gave them the right to vote when women didn't want it?
I'm totally confused by this question.
The majority
Sorry.
of women didn't want the right to vote. They
Is
were
that
against
so?
it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Do you know
I
why?
did not know that. No,
Yeah,
why?
the reason why was because they thought that it would actually increase their work burden, decrease their quality of life, and a lot of people don't know this, but when you had to vote, it was actually a privilege in the sense that you had to either be a landowner, you were eligible for the draft.
But why would
Bucket
why,
Brigade? Are you
why,
a Bucket Brigade?
No.
That's where it's mandatory firefighting service,
So,
right? And so
answer me
women
this.
didn't want the right to vote, which is kind of interesting.
Wait,
a lot
what-
of people assume they did.
Why do
Men wanted women to have the right to
Why
vote.
do people fight so hard against these groups getting their rights to vote if it's such a burden?
Well, my point is they didn't. There wasn't a push to vote, and then when it came to a vote, most women didn't want it. It was the men who passed it. So would that change, assuming I'm not lying, would that change your opinion at all if men, even in the face of a majority of women not wanting the right to vote, said, you know what, it's the right thing to do, you should still have the right to vote? Do they deserve any praise? No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But I do think your points. So I do think your points.
This is really good because I need to learn about history because I think that's very powerful that you're aware of these things and you can pull out these factoids that.
Well, that's a factoid. That's pretty big. A factoid would be like, a black widow's venom is 15 times more potent than that of a diamondback rattlesnake.
Right,
the fact that a majority of women didn't want the right to vote is kind of, we've been lied to at large.
Yeah.
If I'm not lying now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely going to go look that up. And I appreciate, and I didn't mean to disparage your factoid.
No,
by saying factoid.
I appreciate it.
This is
I'm
history.
I'm a white male, I can take it. You can call me a piece of shit for all I care. I understand it. As far as the other points that you made, let's go back through them. The idea of women paid more.
All right. Oh, also, I
Okay, well then let me rattle off really quick. Women aren't paid more for the same work. Women are actually not sexually abused or domestically abused more. And as far as the anecdotal idea that women can walk alone home at night, well, it wouldn't necessarily be the same for a 115-pound shrimpy man and a 180-pound female MMA fighter. So that's anecdotal. We can't really look at that statistically. But no, actually men are raped more often when you include the prison population. And that does matter because men are convicted much more harshly for the exact same crimes as women. As far as the 77 cents on the dollar, if you believe that, I think you really should do a little bit more research, because all that does is compare the median income from women in the workforce to the median income of men in the workforce. It doesn't take into account hours worked. It doesn't take into account risk of labor. It doesn't take into account travel, time away from family. When you account for all of those facets, women actually, in most studies, make a little bit more than men, but exactly the same. So I think it's important that if we're going to have this conversation, and that's why I wanted you to sit down and speak, and I know some people came in hot, I think it does matter to speak the truth.
I agree with that. You could drop the mic, Crowder. You just killed it.
Well, you said you were short for time, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Thank you, Crowder.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Omari?
Yes, I'll say this.
That's one thing I will say as a white man. Stephen, such an uninteresting name.
Well, you know.
Something like Omari. I'll never forget your name, but I'll always forget Bob.
But Stephen, your resume is going to get more looks and more callbacks than mine because your name is regular, you know?
Really?
Or boring. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to see the stats on that.
Oh, that you can look up.
My name was also associated with the first martyr, so my parents weren't necessarily destining me for greatness with that one. This is the first guy who was killed for Christ. Let's name our son after him. Yeah. I'm not thrilled about it.
Yeah, but I guess, no, you definitely dropped a lot of points there that I don't have a response for. But I just say, as a man in my heart, I know that women out there are struggling under oppression all over this country, and the facts are the facts, but people can choose different facts, and I just know what I
don't think people can choose different
heart.
facts. I think your first statement was correct. Facts are the facts. And I think that, yes, there are examples of male privilege for sure, but there are also examples of female privilege.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to recognize that there are privileges that go both ways. There is white privilege in the sense that there are certain advantages that white people would have, but there's also black privilege, that advantages that black people would have. There's male privilege in that certainly there's some biological advantages males enjoy. There's female privilege in that there are a lot of advantages females enjoy, but you don't believe that.
Advantage doesn't mean the same as privilege. Privilege is like an overarching pattern of preference and power in a society, and that's what you got, buddy.
That's what I got because I'm a white male?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't necessarily know that I agree with that.
I know you don't. And
I don't.
try to change your
not
mind,
agree with it. But if you come back with some statistics, well, it's only up when you want to go. But I appreciate it, Omari. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I appreciate keeping it civil.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Be well. Stay safe.
Yeah, I hope we get to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
I'll look up the facts and we can do an encore.
Okay. Thank you, Omari. Thank you very much, man. Well, that went swell. Remember, if you want these videos to continue, please do consider joining Mug Club at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. $69 annually for students, vets, active military. You get this wonderful hand-etched mug and a full daily show not available on YouTube, along with the Blaze TV's entire catalog. It is the only thing that allows these videos to continue. If not, that's fine. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bookmark this channel and check back for new videos every weekday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Let's get back to it. Meet Hannah. Male privilege is a myth. It's not a real thing as it's been presented here today. If you disagree, you're more than welcome to change my mind.
Male privilege as in that men have more advantages than women do?
Okay.
I mean, of course. I mean, sexism exists in every tier of our society in every way. In terms of employment, women still get paid for the same position, for the same work.
Can I do one thing really quickly?
Yeah.
Just because I just want to make sure we don't. As a cis white male, and we've had some people who were upset, can you define woman?
I think gender is more fluid than people who are more traditionalist. Like to think I am very for trans rights and loving trans people and wanting them to live their fullest lives safely. I define gender as what you identify with.
Well, how do we define woman? I just want to make sure that I understand.
Someone who identifies as female.
Okay.
I mean, it's a complicated world. I can see how people who maybe from more traditional societies, like my parents. My parents are from Ethiopia. Even though they're progressive, like politically and socially, it's certain things are kind of difficult to wrap your mind around, and that doesn't make you a bigot necessarily.
Sure.
But I'm very for trans rights.
So when you are talking about sexism or systemic advantages toward men not afforded to women, you are also including trans men to women.
Trans women have their own issues. I mean, trans people are beaten up, attacked, killed in the streets simply for being who they are. I mean, I am terrified for them, to be honest, particularly in communities that may not be as educated, may not have as much exposure to people like them.
Okay.
But
okay, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't overstep my bounds. So we are including trans male to females among women. Okay. Yeah. So continue as you were presenting the idea of systemic male privilege.
I think the whole idea that women have their role in the home and that they don't belong in the workforce, they don't belong in positions of leadership, I think that has been dismantled to a large extent.
Sure.
But there is very much still the idea of, women.
That's a good thing?
Of what?
The idea that women shouldn't necessarily be in the home.
I think the wave of feminism that I see and I understand that most young people around my age accept is that women can do whatever they want to do, and that's what I believe. If a woman wants to be a stay-at-home mom, great. If a woman wants to be a career woman and never get married, phenomenal. I think women should do what makes them happy. People should just do what makes them happy.
I would agree with all that, except if she wants to be a career woman or not get married, phenomenal. I think it's her choice. I don't think it's a good one, and statistics would bear that out. But I agree. I think feminism, if I'm not mistaken, if we both agree, is women making the choice. I
think people, in general, if you're not breaking any laws or hurting anyone, you should do whatever you want.
You should be allowed to do what you want.
As long as, under those parameters.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I also think, going back to the idea of basic feminism.
Well, the idea is male privilege. So I guess
I think we need to talk about one more thing when we talk about the two genders and their relationship. We need to talk about race and feminism. A lot of the times, black women feel disheartened by mainstream feminism, or what they call white feminism, because the statistic, they bring us a statistic about women make this number cents to every dollar.
And black women make even less.
Yes. So
and
I think
Hispanic women make less as well.
And Native American women. We always forget Native Americans.
Sorry.
No, that's not just on you. I think as a culture we do.
Sure.
But we have to always be cognizant of intersectionality when it comes to relationships between the genders.
So a lot to keep track of. So let me, try and laser in on some points so we can find out where we agree or disagree. You talked about systemic discrimination and male privilege. That's kind of what obviously is the catalyst for this conversation. Can you point to any single right in 2020 afforded to a man not afforded to a woman? Before we get to societal, because I would agree with you, but legally speaking.
I think, as of today, this day and age.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand is that a lot of things on paper are set up a certain way for equality, but in practice it's very different. It's kind of like, in theory there's equality, but in practice there's so many discrepancies. The glass ceiling still exists, and it will exist.
In theory we have equality. What do you mean by that, as far as the law?
Because we have the law, but there are so many...
Okay, so
there's
the law,
so much
we're
specifics
equal under the law completely, but then in practice, you're saying we're not. Okay.
And there are certain things that are different, like, for example, men can be drafted, women won't be into the military.
That's female privilege.
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. It depends on perspective. Women are not allowed.
Well, how does that depend on perspective?
Women.
Is that not a privilege to not be eligible for the draft?
Some people want to be in the military, and that's maybe.
Yeah, but women have the choice. Men don't.
It's complex. For example, in Iraq, women are not allowed in the front lines of combat.
Sure.
Despite having all the training, being decorated officials in the army, they are not allowed to. And also,
they're also not allowed to talk back.
In the army.
in Iraq? Saying
And women-
I'm saying
and-
there aren't equal rights in Iraq for women and men. We would both agree on that. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Western civilization, the United States. But it sounds to me
No,
like
no. I'm talking about in the Iraq War.
women in the United States military not
Yes,
serving on
in
the
the
front
Iraq
lines.
War. Yeah,
Okay, because they can now.
yeah. And then let's talk about.
And you see that as systemic discrimination, not allowing women in the front lines.
I mean, if they are just as skilled in combat, if they've completed their training,
They're
if they are
not.
decorated officers,
They're far less skilled. We had to lower the PT requirements for women to make it in. Women couldn't meet the same requirements that men did, so we lowered them for women.
well, in combat, it's not like it's with guns; it's with military-grade weapons, so it doesn't require the same amount
Okay,
of like.
we lowered the ruck times as far as how long you run with a pack on your back or carrying someone who's also in your platoon. We lowered the pull-ups, we lowered the push-ups, we lowered everything for female standards, and I mean that's female privilege, right? Men had to meet a certain set of standards, and when women couldn't meet them, we lowered them. So I just think.
That's not female privilege.
Oh, okay.
That's promoting equality among the genders.
How's that promoting equality though? By lowering the
by
standards.
allowing them to be involved directly in serving our country, giving women all the same opportunities. It's like, I think you're moving into the territory of affirmative action. That's what I sense here.
Well, no, what we were talking about was the draft, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because you said that's not a privilege for a woman to not be automatically eligible for the draft. Where we both agreed that feminism should be a choice, right? That's the idea of a woman choosing her life. A woman has the privilege of choosing not to go in the military. A man doesn't. And this is kind of important because it ties to the idea, of women's right to vote. You do realize that men only have the right to vote because they were eligible for the draft and bucket brigade and owned property. And women got the right to vote without being eligible for the draft.
I believe that women had. Wait, what? Say it again?
Okay. So, do you know in women's suffrage, when women were given the right to vote,
1920.
Yeah.
Not for women of color. Women of color didn't get the right to vote
we'll get
for
back
decades.
to that. But 1919 ratified in 1920, yes.
And black women were.
But before
even
that,
within the women's suffrage movement, there was a lot of racism. There were most of the women.
Hold on a second. Let's stay with this because right now we're talking about male and female. So, who gave women the right to vote? Who voted for women to have the right to vote?
Progressive men.
Men, sure.
Progressive men.
Did most women?
And they had to fight for 80 years.
But they didn't. Most women didn't want the right to vote. Did you know that? The majority of them didn't. Do you know why? Because of the draft. Because of bucket brigade. Because voting was not seen as just an inherent birthright no matter what. It came with certain sets of responsibilities. To allow women to vote who didn't want it, we removed those responsibilities.
I think when you are taught black is blue your entire life, you will believe black is blue. They were taught that women did not belong in, because if they're voting, they may vote for women into office, and they did not believe that women belonged in positions of power and positions of leadership. They were brainwashed. That's being indoctrinated.
Okay. So the men who were brainwashing them to not be able to vote were the ones who overwhelmingly supported and got them the right to vote, even though women didn't want it.
Men overwhelmingly supported the right to vote for women?
As far as people...
Who are the people who are oppressing women for centuries? Who are forcing them in arranged marriages where they're raped and being forced to bear children that they didn't want, that they couldn't provide for? Women were oppressed since the beginning of time, except for maybe a few classical Greek societies. Women were oppressed in every corner of the world. The majority of men did not support the right to vote. The majority of men were trying to disenfranchise the women's suffrage movement since it began in the 1840s.
I'm a little confused. How do laws get passed?
Men were the ones who put Susan B. Anthony in jail for trying to register to vote.
Let's stick with the vote. How do laws get passed?
Through both houses of Congress.
Okay. And in order for it to pass, I just want to assume I don't know a whole lot. Does it require a majority to vote it in?
Yes.
Okay. And was that majority back then, would it have comprised of men?
Men, when they were facing the pressure of a cultural shift, they did what was right.
Okay.
They had changes of hearts. They changed their perspective, and that was because of the tireless work of these men. Tried to disenfranchise them every step of the way.
No, that's not accurate. But let's move on to today, to 2020. Maybe we'll just disagree. I do have some sources here afterward, which will be interesting, some kind of data on how many women wanted the right to vote. Again, provided that it came with the current set of responsibilities that voting did at the time. But we go back to today. We both agree there are no legally recognized rights afforded to men, not to women. But you mentioned systemic privilege or societal privilege. Mm-hmm. Could you give me some examples of that? So in 2020, what is male privilege?
Male privilege is not having to walk down the street and being afraid of being sexually harassed, of being catcalled, of being objectified, being treated as an object of sex and not a person with thoughts and feelings and dreams and goals and complexities. You don't have to walk down the street and feel afraid the way women do in certain parts of the country.
Some of us do. And some of us much more so than women.
And do you want to talk about other societies in the world?
No, I want to talk about the United States. Because I would totally agree with you with societies like you mentioned. I think you mentioned Ethiopia or India or Islamic countries. I would agree with you. Let's
Ethiopia is a Christian country, but...
Sure. No, I didn't say Ethiopia was an Islamic country, but I know Ethiopia, not necessarily the same kind of rights that we have here in the United States. And as a general rule across the entire Islamic world, women are not afforded the same rights as men. I think that's horrible. So for the record, I obviously think women should have the right to vote. But where we disagree is I do think it's a female privilege to not be forced into the draft. Now, I do take your point here where you talk about walking down the street. I mean, we just had someone assault us right here to try and steal the sign. It was actually a woman. So it does happen with men as well. Now, as far as sexual assault, I would agree. I hate the sexual objectification of women. That's why I have a problem with feminism, because as I'm sure you know, women's liberation, the pornification of culture, it's been supported by most prominent feminists, and I've even seen women here supporting sex workers. So I think you and I would find common ground there.
I think as far as sex work, it's not something that I would want for myself or my family, but I think if it's two consenting adults, I don't see the point of criminalizing. I don't know if we should completely legalize it right now, but at least decriminalizing it. It may not be a fabulous life choice, but an adult has a right to, and oftentimes it's the conditions of people's lives. That's what people understand.
I don't want to get, it's just we were talking about sexual objectification. I'm saying we agree on that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you on the idea of walking home and not being fearful. First off, I think every woman should have their head in a swivel, and I think every man should. And I do think that men commit a majority of the violent crime in this country, but it's also perpetrated against men. In other words, if we're both walking down the street at night, I am more likely to be violently attacked than you are.
I'm talking more about like sexual assaults, abductions, things like that. A predator would probably want to take me before taking you because I'm smaller. Because, okay, if you want to use that term.
Oh, what term would you use?
I mean, you don't. Anyway, that's besides the point. I also physically, I'm stronger, and you're physically weaker. That's what I'm saying. In other words, for the same reason that I would try and help you if someone were physically assaulting you, because I'm stronger than you. Is that it? And someone could drag me into a van a lot easier than they could drag you into a van. Yeah, it'd be harder to drag my fat ass into a van. But that being said, men are the victims of violent crimes more than women. What about slut shaming? Okay, well, I guess let's just switch topics. What about slut shaming? What about promiscuity and how women are demonized for having sexuality? Because we live in a very sex-negative society in general, but... I'm sorry, I thought you just said women were objectified and seen as sex objects too often, but now you're saying we're demonizing women if we see them sexually. No, you know what I mean. I really don't. I think whenever, like for example, if you were to have X amount of partners sexually, like if I slept with 12 people and one of my male cousins slept with 12 people, who would be called a slut? I would call you both. Maybe you would. I'm saying society in general. slut shames women a lot more. And I will admit, it's women who slut shame women a lot.
Yeah. Women actually, as a matter of fact, this is kind of interesting where you talked about the objectification of women. Do you actually know that women, when they've conducted these studies, and they have these sources for you, they did a more recent one, very specific with online dating, but in general, women grade men far more harshly on physical traits than men grade women. Men grade women on a bell curve, and actually are far more forgiving. Women are far harsher in their expectations of men physically.
That's false. That is, on its face, absolutely, unequivocally a lie.
Incorrect.
Women are judged based on their looks way more. I mean, douchey young guys see women walk by and be like, oh, she's a 9. Oh, she's a 7. Oh, that person's out of my league. First of all, no human being is superior to any other human being. I mean, I really...
In certain facets, sure.
I really resent the notion that, like, oh, that person is out of my league. I can't pursue them. But women are... Going back to the 10 scale, women are judged on the 1 to 10 scale a lot more than men are. I don't walk by and go through and go,
that's anecdotal. I'm talking about...
that guy is a 7. Oh, he's not out of my league. Let me go talk to him. That's not how women approach men. Women are judged based on their looks a lot more. Women are called ugly. Women are called... Okay, can I give you an example, specifically what I'm talking about? This is from the 90s. This is from the OJ trial. Every day, the press would criticize Marsha Clark's, she has no fashion, she has ugly hair, she looks frazzled with her horrible curly hair. And they never go, oh, OJ, what an ugly tie he was wearing. Oh, Johnny Cochran. Oh, he got his suit at Goodwill. Like, no one would say that.
Actually, I think of everyone involved with the OJ trial, the one most remembered for crazy suits was Johnny Cochran. He's the one who was turned to a caricature.
No, but he was not criticized every single day and attacked for her looks the way Marsha Clark was attacked. People were calling her unattractive. People were saying she had no sense of style, like I said about her hair. They were not getting that. People would be like, oh, wow, that suit is kind of out there.
And so this is an example of male privilege to you?
Yes, because they wouldn't be like, oh, he's ugly, he's unappealing because of his looks. And also, can I make another...
I'm sorry, I don't want to get into... I want to move on because I've been called ugly so many times and rightfully so. Rightfully so. It's the idea, the anecdotal is what we want to deal in here.
People didn't teach you that your looks... First of all, you're not ugly by any means. Second of all...
Neither are you.
Thank you.
And by the way, my wife there is out of my league, and so would you be if I were a single male. I have no problem saying that.
No, she's not, because no human being is better than anybody else.
They are in certain facets.
I'm sure
she's far more physically attractive than I am.
I'm sure she is beautiful, but she's not better than you because she's beautiful.
She's more beautiful than I am.
But she did. I don't know if that's true, but
more people want to have sex with her than me.
Can I bring up another point? It's a little bit unrelated, but it's related to Marsha Clark from the OJ trial. People call powerful women bitches. They're like, oh, she's bossy. Oh, she's a bitch whenever she has strong views. But if a man were to conduct himself in the same way and give off the same demeanor, they'd be like, oh, wow, what a strong, powerful man. He's really getting it done. He's really sticking it to them.
Yeah,
but women are taught, oh, she's bossy. She's a bitch. She needs to stay in her place. She needs to, or for example, when women have a serious face, oh, you should smile more, honey.
Yes,
smile
I think
more,
women
darling.
should smile more.
I mean, I think everyone should smile more.
Can I express it? Because we've gotten completely off the statistical, so this just ends up being personal, so let's have a personal conversation here. Maybe because I just had this discussion not that long ago with a female relative. Okay, a man is physically attracted to warmth and tenderness in a woman, right? That is an attractive trait because we like nice women. You just talked about bitchy, right? So
that's what they call women when they're powerful.
No, that's what they call women when they're acting like bitches. But yes.
No.
Men get called assholes.
Not a bitch.
But I'm not talking about.
She's a very compassionate woman, and
finish?
people are calling her a bitch all the time because she was a powerful woman. People call Hillary Clinton.
I would like to be able to finish my point.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to be accused of male privilege, but you are speaking very long. I do want to make my point. Okay. So men are physically attracted to tenderness and warmth from a woman.
Yes.
A smiling woman is biologically more attractive to a man than a frowning woman. Now let me tell you why. Because men live particularly to please their wives and women. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
And so to us, it is attractive to see our wife or to see the woman that we love smiling. A man and I'm sure if you've been in a relationship for any period of time, right? How often do you get the, "Are you okay, sweetie? Are you happy?"
I've never
You seem
been in
like
a
you're upset.
relationship, but
Okay,
yeah.
well, this happens a lot. It's
Yeah.
often a point of conflict for my wife and I. When did I do? Are you okay? Are you happy? A man saying, "Hey, it's attractive for a woman to smile more," is the equivalent to a woman saying it's attractive for a man to listen more.
Okay, I'm gonna respond to that.
Okay.
The whole notion of like telling women to smile transcends relationships. It's even down the street. Men come up to women and go, "Oh, hey, honey, hey, sweetheart, smile more, smile." And it's a very like condescending thing. It's very patronizing. It's very much.
If
I
a
don't-
stranger came up and said, "Hey, sugar baby, smile more," I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, that's kind of crappy." But that's
No,
again,
I
we're
wouldn't
in
be
the anecdotal.
offended. I wouldn't be offended, but I understand it's symptomatic of the culture of patronizing women, of treating women differently than you would treat men in that way.
We shouldn't.
And that, if that makes sense.
But you just supported lowering the PT requirements in the military so women could join up because they're weaker. Is that patronizing or is that equality? Because I'm confused.
That's equality.
Okay, so saying women, you can't do as many push-ups or pull-ups, or you can't do the 16-mile run. I don't know what the PT requirements are now. It may be different. You can't do it as well as men, so we're going to lower it so that you can join the military. That's equality.
Can I say something
but
about the
saying smile
military
more is
again too? For example, if you look at, there's not just one general of the military, just how expansive the military is. There are several.
Right.
Do you see even one? And a general is not doing. They're older men. They're not doing physically like strenuous workouts. It's mostly administrative, and they don't let women do even like the desk jobs.
Yeah.
If that makes
That's
sense.
incorrect. Do you have any military in your family?
No.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a military family. That's not correct at all. It's not, a general's job is not at all administrative. Frankly, I would
But
say
they
that's a
don't
bit of
do-
female privilege because you're kind of glib on that topic. It's an incredibly intellectually strenuous and emotionally
I'm
strenuous.
sure. I'm not saying they're
because you
not
have to
done by any means. It's
Yeah.
military science. I'm sure is complex. I'm sure they're very intelligent.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that's not a physical job as much as the guys in the lower. You can't tell me it's just as physical as the guy who are on the ground
No, it's
running
not
in
just as
Iraq.
physical, but men are more suited to it, and that's why they tend to be generals more.
Why are men more suited to it?
Well, there are two reasons. You just said that they're older men. And yes, I don't know if you know
They're
how
typically older. Yeah, I've
Do you know
seen
how
them
long
at
it
the State
takes
of
to
the
become a
Union.
general?
Decades, probably. I
Yes,
don't know.
exactly. So that would go back to men being in the military longer than women, certainly in those positions. And yeah, listen,
But I'm
this
sure if there's
okay.
they're a military, like for example, the McCains are like military royalty.
Sure.
I'm sure it'd be much easier for them to get that than like a bub off the street.
That may be so. I think, but I do appreciate. I think we have some other people who might want to sit down.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
I do appreciate.
I loved it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's nice
Thank you.
meeting you guys.
Keep your head in a swivel and stay safe too. There's some riffraff around here.
Either way.
I was waiting. It had been a long time since I spoke with him.
Good
David?
cigar weather?
Steve, it is. It's perfect cigar weather. It's beautiful outside.
All right.
So
yeah.
apparently you had some insights. You wanted to sit down and talk. I don't know how familiar you are with what this segment is, with Change My Mind that we do. It's basically ideas, not a cable news edited sort of talking point gotcha match.
Okay, I
Everything
like
is
that.
completely unedited, where we can rationalize our positions on controversial topics. Obviously, you've seen today the Women's March. A lot of people talking about rape culture, male privilege. So male privilege, as they've described it, not a thing, in my opinion. And if you disagree, you're more than welcome to change my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I would say I disagree in the sense that I do think male privilege is real, in the sense that biologically speaking, men are born inherently stronger. They have higher testosterone levels.
Sure.
So they're able to protect themselves physically a lot more than a woman who might be untrained in a martial art or something.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they have an inherent strength advantage when it comes to protecting themselves, such as walking around the streets late at night.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they do have a certain privilege.
Yeah, I would say that's an advantage, a biological advantage.
Right.
Right? That men are physically stronger, women are physically weaker, sure. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but that's not really what they're talking about here. As a matter of fact, some women have said the opposite, where they've said, I don't need your protection, I don't need your help, I can take care of myself physically. You can even listen to some of the speakers here, so I think some of them would disagree with you, but I don't disagree with you at all. I think then maybe we would both agree there are no legal rights. When we're talking about privilege, we're talking about systemic discrimination. There are no legal rights afforded to men not afforded to women in 2020?
I don't disagree with you entirely on that point.
Where would you disagree at all?
That being said, I didn't hear any of the speakers today saying that they don't need men's help, they don't need men's support. In fact,
I didn't
feel
say
like,
men's help. I talked about men's physically protecting them.
Okay, yeah. And
But I agree with you. I
completely
think women
agree
are
with
very
that.
weak and very vulnerable to being attacked by men.
I don't agree with that. But if you look,
So-
most of the
Wait,
most of the
I'm agreeing with
violent-
you. I'm confused.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is that if you look at most of the violent actions,
Yeah.
they are caused by men and they are perpetrated by men.
Well, I guess which violent actions would we be talking about?
Physical harm, rape, things of this nature.
Okay, so they are the ones who commit those crimes more often
Men are, yeah,
than women.
than women. Correct.
Yeah, that's probably, men by their very nature are more aggressive, but men are also disproportionately the victims of these crimes, more so than women.
By other men.
Yes, often. Unless we're talking about domestic abuse, where the rates are actually pretty similar, men to women, women to men. But
Right.
as you said, women are weaker, so it's not as treated as big of a deal.
They have different advantages. I wouldn't like to use a word such as weaker, but obviously when we're talking about biological strength, then yes, men have the advantage. But of course,
So that would mean women are weaker.
That's like a trigger word that you can use, because to say women are weaker, I don't think there's a lot of different types of strength. And
Women are physically weaker than men.
Sure.
Sure.
But, it's important to delineate that from all of the other types of strength that there are.
Sure.
That women might have, and women do have more than men.
Right. Like, for example, like what?
Like emotional strength, like intellectual strength, things of this nature.
So you think women are smarter than men?
I think, I don't think there is any difference, biologically speaking, between a woman's intelligence and a man's intelligence.
Oh, well, you said intellectual strength as though it's an advantage. So you're saying it's equal, not that women are smarter.
Most humans are very similar in that aspect, and there's not a difference between any certain race or gender in terms of intellectual capacity.
Yeah, I think that's I would agree with that.
Okay.
But you listed those as advantages. You said, for example, you didn't want to use the word weaker in relation to physical strength. You said that was a trigger word, but then you said women have some advantages over men, and then you listed emotional strength and intellectual strength. So I'm confused. It sounded like you were saying that they're emotionally stronger than men, or
I
intellectually?
think they could be. I think they could be emotionally stronger than men.
Okay.
Yeah.
And men are physically stronger than women, they're weaker physically.
That being said, movements like this are extremely important, because it's important for us as men to show solidarity with our women and with all certain people who are sharing this experience that we have.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to get the same exact thing, which is just a better life for ourselves, for our family, for our community. So I think it's very important to show our unity and our solidarity with people that maybe we don't even agree with.
Yeah, well, I do show solidarity, but I show solidarity with women who share my values, not because of their gender. Most of these women here wouldn't represent the values, not only of myself, but of half of the women in America.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what are the values here that you're showing by saying that, male privilege is a myth, that men are in all terms stronger than women,
I didn't
that
say
women
that.
are weaker?
You said that.
Okay. Well, I heard
You
you
said
say
men are physically stronger than women. I said, so women are physically weaker than men.
That's what I heard you say. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
Okay. Now, I wouldn't like to
Is your
say-
problem is with the word weaker?
Yes,
So you can
exactly.
say men are stronger than women physically, but you think it's inappropriate to say women are weaker than men.
Yeah, because we're not putting it in the proper context. Yeah.
Okay, what would be the proper context?
Strength, period.
Yeah,
But
but
going in that
physical
sense,
strength,
going in
sure.
that sense, and I think you agreed with me on this, that men do have that male privilege when it comes to having that strength, that physical strength,
Sure.
of being able to going around and have more confidence that they won't be raped or taken advantage of or,
Well, no,
or
that's not
brutally
true.
assaulted.
Men are raped far more often.
If you look at other countries around the world, there are several instances where women are raped and the accusers end up going off scot-free.
I agree,
Yeah.
yeah, especially like in Islamic countries,
Or,
Sharia law.
this just happened in India not too long ago.
Yep.
And then the accuser or the victim was on her way to court, and there was another tragic attack where they actually set her on fire.
I know.
So it's very important for these movements where we show solidarity that it's not just an American It's not just for people in the United States. We need to show our values, which I hope you would support as Americans.
That women
where
shouldn't be
we
burned?
show our solidarity with not only other men, but other women
Sure.
and everybody all around the world in order to support the values which maybe you and I have in common, which I'm not sure what your values are. I'm not
well,
sure.
no, I certainly would value that. I don't think that women should be burned alive for accusing men of rape or being raped.
Or would you agree that they should not be raped?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, then.
But thank God we don't live in a rape culture in the United States where rapists are prosecuted and convicted. Now, I don't see a lot of these marches going on in India. I would like to, and I haven't seen any signs of people talking about liberating women in India or Islamic countries. Would that be something you'd like to see more of?
I would like to see you fight or propose the argument that male privilege is a myth in other countries that are not the United States.
What do you mean? I think male privilege is not a myth in places like Islamic countries or Saudi Arabia, where women didn't have the right to drive by themselves until recently.
That's true.
But in the United States, there are no rights afforded to men that aren't afforded to women. Now, that being said, I agree with you that women are physically weaker than men. Men are stronger than women. I don't necessarily consider that a systemic privilege. I consider that a biological advantage. And I would agree with you, not on intellect, not on necessarily emotional capacity, but on the flip side of that coin, we'd probably agree, women enjoy some biological advantages or privileges that men don't.
So you're
Right?
saying that we are both privileged, that
Yes.
men and women are privileged?
Yes, in different
ways. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I agree with you.
You agree with me on that?
Yeah, I think we just reached an agreement.
Well, yeah, I think we agree on a lot. What I do disagree with is obviously the perpetuation of this idea that there's a patriarchal society or male privilege or a rape culture, or that if we want to support women, we have to support these women. So see, I support the women who've showed up who are pro-life women, women who maybe support the values that I support, and they're women too, and that makes up 50% of the country. So I think it's a misrepresentation of the women of America to take this march wholesale as emblematic of all women's points of view.
See, I would disagree with that. I think that this march is actually purely, case in point, pro-woman.
Well, no, there are all kinds of pro-abortion signs, pro-Green New Deal signs. I mean, this is pro-leftist democratic policy.
Nevertheless, it should be a woman's right to choose what they're able to do with their own body. I mean, it should not be up to men, in government to decide what we can do, what we can have our own bodily autonomy.
Sure.
I would hope that you would agree with me.
So let me clarify, abortion was not one of the topics of discussion on that day, but since this gentleman brought up a woman's right to choose, I thought it warranted a bit more exploration. I would agree that no one has the right to tell somebody else what they can do with their own body, provided they're not hurting someone. Yeah.
Agreed, yeah.
The baby in the womb is not their body.
I guess we disagree on that.
Why? So let me ask you this. You believe that the baby in a woman's womb you believe that's her body, not a different body?
I believe, yeah, they're inherently connected.
So how many fingers does a woman have?
That's besides the point.
No, it is the exact point.
No.
How many feet does she have? Does a woman have a penis if it's a boy?
Yeah, see, I completely disagree with the whole premise of this notion, because you're saying that the baby inside of the mom is separate and disconnected.
You're saying it's the same. So how many feet does a woman have?
I'm saying they're connected.
You said it's the same body. I want to make sure I understand. You said the woman has the right to do whatever she wants with that baby. And by the way, I understand that women people like to go to this argument if I disagree with them, because if I have a penis, I can't have an opinion. But you're surrounded by a lot of women who disagree with your point.
Right, and
so
I support them.
How many fingers and toes does that woman have if it's her body? Does she have 20 fingers and toes? Or does she still have 10?
Either way, I still support women, whether they are pro-life, which I don't agree with, whether they are pro-choice, I support them. Point blank.
How can you support both?
Pro-women, because I am not someone that says, if you don't believe in my values, if you don't believe in what I stand for, you don't have any rights, you don't have a right to speak. No, this is America.
Well, no one's saying that.
In America, you have rights.
Sure.
And you should be able to speak your mind as you are. You should be able to basically say, whether you are pro-life, whether you are pro-choice, great. I want you to be heard.
Sure.
And that's what this march is about. Showing solidarity with women.
Forgive me for a second, but you were the one who said, I should have no say in what a woman does with her own body, correct? So you said I have no right to an opinion. And then I said, but myself, along with many women here, and all biologists would tell you that that is not her body, the baby in the womb. So the only person here arguing that someone has no right to an opinion is you, that I don't because I have a penis.
What's your name?
Stephen.
Stephen, I should not have a right to tell you that you should not be able to smoke that cigar. I should not have a right to tell you that you should not be able to drink alcohol or do whatever it is you want to do.
Agreed.
As long as you are not hurting somebody else.
I agree.
That's where I'm coming from.
I agree with you.
Now, I may have a different opinion. I may have an opinion that says, I don't think you should do crystal meth, but whether you want to do that or not, that's your body.
If you've never tried meth, what a trip.
I'll take your word on that.
Okay, all right, we'll take my word for it. No, but I'm still saying it's not an accurate comparison because we're talking about another body. You have yet to explain to me. Let me ask you this. When does this become another body? Here's a fetal development chart. I wasn't even planning on talking about abortion today.
Okay, yeah. Honestly, me neither. And I'm sure you already have talking points.
No, I just want to ask your opinion. So you say it's the woman's body. Where in this chart does it become a separate body?
Once they cut the umbilical cord. Not saying that, abortion should be up until that point.
Why not?
Well, that's just not my values.
But why not? If it's not a person, if it's not another body, why shouldn't you be able to abort up until the head crowns?
I don't think it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Why? I don't understand why. If it's just a
part
of the woman's body, it's like clipping a toenail.
Why do you think that, there should not be any abortion? Why do you think that it is not part of a woman's body?
Yeah, because the only way to accurately and consistently delineate what constitutes a person would be at conception.
What about a zygote?
And that's the biological. Yeah, so let's go. I would even say this. Do you realize it's you as that little zygote? Do you realize your hair color, your facial hair, your bone structure, whether you were an innie or an outie, whether you would grow chest hair, your intellect, your genetic code that is entirely unique to you, separate from the mother and the father, is created at the moment of conception. It's the only way to accurately and consistently delineate. Now, if you don't believe that that's the case, that the idea of a new unique body shouldn't be the standard bearer, then you need to have a pretty clear litmus test. And it sounds to me like you just said, well, I don't think up until the umbilical cord is cut, but I still think it's wrong for abortion to happen that late in the pregnancy, but I don't understand why.
Incorrect. You are misrepresenting what I said.
Okay, I don't want it. So
I was basically saying that the baby is connected to the mother quite literally until that time. Okay, because you asked me when do they stop being connected?
So I asked you if it was the woman's body, and you said it was.
I believe that women, look, whether it is a separate life, or whether it is, able to be independent on its own, which I don't think, even up until any of these stages.
No, of course not. Well past that, up to 2.5, it wouldn't be viable. You leave it on the balcony in the winter would die. So I think that
this is something that we as, moral people that can disagree, that have differing opinions and different points of view should come to an agreement through discussion, through disagreement, bringing our own valid points of view, just as yours is equally as valid as mine. However, I would have to defer this to, scientists or people who are more educated on this matter. Not saying that your opinion is therefore null.
No, scientists agree with me.
I do value your opinion.
Yeah, well, that's where my opinion comes from, is science textbooks.
Okay.
That's what defines life. It begins at conception scientifically. We can change, and I'm saying if you would like to change that, you can, but your barometer, which is as long as it's attached, if I'm not mistaken.
What I'm saying is a woman, now in my point of view, I think, generally first trimester is safe. Even going up to, some parts of the second trimester, okay. I get a little bit of hesitation when it gets anywhere past that. But then again,
why?
I just don't think it's proper. I think that by then, too much of it has formed, where now it is more of a viable baby, more of a viable human being.
Okay, so you're against abortion in the third trimester. You believe that shouldn't be allowed?
I think that abortions should be able to be provided because if you don't give people the option to do it cleanly, safely, then they're going to do it on their own. And
so even in the third trimester, but you just said that at that point it's a viable
you're
baby.
You're going to have people taking that into their own hands, and then you're going to have a loss of life.
I mean, murder, according to your own definition, you said in the third trimester, it's not right.
I'm talking about, one where you don't have any medical overseeing, where you don't have any doctors that are a part of it.
But it would still be ending a life in the third trimester.
A lot of issues there, by not having these women in a healthy, sterile, safe environment.
So you're against abortions in the third trimester, except in a healthy, safe, sterile environment?
No. Once again, misrepresenting what I'm saying.
I'm trying to understand your point.
I am pro women's choice for them to do what they want with their body.
Up until when?
Point blank, period. What they want to do with their body.
So up until it crowns?
No.
Okay, so then up until when?
Just like the same exact way
up until
that
when?
I am for you smoking your cigars, doing whatever you want with your body, I am for women to have that choice, to have that education, to have that availability and that security of being with a doctor.
Got it. All the way up until the umbilical cord is cut?
No.
Okay, so then up until when?
I'm not the arbiter to say. In my point of view, I would say somewhere up until, in the generally in the second trimester. Okay. But of course, every case is different.
So what changes from the second trimester to the thord trimester that makes it unacceptable in your opinion?
Obviously, we know that there's more development happening, but I think it's very important to look and see where is the phase of development, because as we know, different organisms, different babies develop at faster rates than others.
Okay, so forgive me, what was your name again?
David.
So David, if David, you can wave your wand right now. I'm just trying to understand your position on abortion. You can determine abortion law. It is legal up until?
Whether you or I agree with it or disagree with it, can we agree that abortion, if it's going to happen, which we know people are going to abort their babies anyway, at a certain point, shouldn't it be safe? Shouldn't it be in an environment where they won't potentially die because,
the baby's always dying.
I'm talking about the mother.
Well, I'm talking about the baby. And so I'm asking you are president, you're a dictator. Abortion is legal up until?
I'm not a dictator. In
that world.
And I would not do it without my advisors, both, doctor advisors, scientific advisors, and I would want to hear what the people have to say.
Okay.
Right. I'm not a dictator.
I'm not saying you're a dictator. I'm saying in a perfect world, I'm trying to understand where you draw the line with abortion, but you're not.
In a perfect world, we don't have abortion.
In today's world, where do you draw the line? Final go.
My final go, I say today we need to have safe and available abortions for women who require it, who need it, who aren't as advantaged and as privileged as the people who have more capital, more financial resources as us.
Up until when?
I'm not the one to say that.
Okay, so I didn't misrepresent your view at all. You've just not expressed it.
Okay.
Thank you, though. I appreciate it. I don't want to go around in circles, but I appreciate taking the time, brother. Thank you, David. Now, like that conversation, we ventured into a different topic with Alexis and ended up talking a bit about rape culture. Also, you may recall that in that video, and if you want to see it, a link is in the description or playing in this box, a transgender individual opted to refer to me as a dumpster fire and assault me with a hobo's Tupperware container. You know what? Go watch it. I don't want to spoil it. Alexis, Stephen, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, I know that you came up and wanted to have a conversation. I don't know how familiar you are at all with kind of this segment that we do, Change My Mind, but let me just explain it to you quickly so we kind of understand where we're coming from.
Sure.
The idea behind this is to have the opportunity to rationalize our positions on controversial topics without it being edited like you see on cable news, scoring points. It's completely unedited. And as it relates to today, we've just talked about male privilege, but right now we've also seen a lot of signs regarding rape culture here in the United States. Not a real thing. Rape culture is a myth. If you disagree with me, you're more than welcome to tell me where I'm wrong and change my mind.
Okay, yeah, I do disagree with you.
Okay.
I, for a lot of reasons, rape culture it's something that's been going on for not just decades, but for hundreds of years, and it spans cultures and countries all across the world, and it does lie very much within male privilege, and rape culture is is compounded by lots of variables. So whether that's in the workplace, male or female, actively engaging with women or men in inappropriate ways, or perhaps you're walking down the street and a woman is wearing a short skirt, so someone feels that's acceptable to touch her ass. And I'm sorry, I don't know if
you can
profanity
say that.
is good.
I mean, you shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't do that,
No.
yes. But
But you can say
it's this capacity where even law enforcement, when a woman who is told, if you're assaulted, please go to the authorities, they will handle it. And then someone in a privilege of power, let's say a cop or an attorney or whatever, they ask the question, well, what were you wearing that night? That permeates.
Which is bullshit, by the way.
It is bullshit,
I'm so
yeah.
sorry. And
Sorry.
you think rape culture is a fucking
Can you just wait? We'll have a conversation
Don't worry.
afterwards.
I agree with you
There's
wholeheartedly.
no conversation that needs to be fucking had. Rape is fucking serious. Rape has happened to me 4 fucking times, and I'm sick and tired of this fucking debate. Men need to respect women, period.
So you should respect women.
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I am a woman, so fuck you if you don't think
Sir.
so. I don't really have time for this.
I
don't have time.
My
No,
mistake.
You're going to let me speak because here's my truth. I've been raped
Your
4
privilege.
times. I've known women that have been raped multiple times gruesomely. And how dare you sit up here and try to say that women aren't worth respect? Fuck you.
I didn't say that.
I am a woman. I just became a woman. It's just like, are you fucking kidding me? People don't even respect me, period. And I'm already black, so it's just like, yeah, that already goes against me anyways. But still, fuck you piece of living garbage ass dumpster fire trash gum on the bottom of my shoe. Oh my God, I wish I had a tissue for the blood. I would fucking.
Might I suggest it's your behavior, not because you're black or a woman.
I'm sorry. Can I stop here? Can I stop here, please? She has just made a statement about being assaulted, which is very vulnerable and it's very scary to do.
She just called me a.
I understand.
Yeah, the
I understand.
gentleman just called me a fucking piece of shit, so I'm saying that's.
She
Sorry, my mistake.
just made a declaration.
So
that is
when
very
did she
painful.
go from male privilege to female privilege? Because she just said she only became a female recently.
That's not the conversation we're having.
It is now.
That's not the conversation. That's not the
Well,
conversation
you just
I came
gave them
into.
the right to come in and interject,
No.
so I would like to discuss that.
You said this video is for the purpose of having a discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and it.
Yep.
And it wasn't okay, the approach that she made, but it also wasn't okay to antagonize and to just do
How did I
this.
antagonize?
If we're going to have a conversation, let's go back to what we were originally
Well,
talking
no,
about.
I think this is important because I think that's an example of female or trans privilege right there.
Are we talking about rape privilege or trans privilege? Because I
Well,
want to stay on
hold
one
a second.
topic.
Are we talking about? What was that? No, that's when we're talking about rape culture, and well, we were also talking about privilege. So
So I'm going to finish what I was saying earlier.
well, I would have liked to finish as well, but since we were
And that wasn't
interrupted,
my
I do
fault.
think
That wasn't my fault. And I
no,
brought
but
us
you
back.
did step in when I was
And
trying
I brought us
to.
back to us having this conversation on your video. I brought us back because you weren't helping the situation, so I brought us back.
Well, it's
So
not
I'm
about
gonna-
helping the
I'm
situation.
gonna-
It's about
I'm
being
going to
truthful.
finish-
Truth matters.
I'm going to finish saying my
okay,
truth.
go ahead. Your
Okay?
truth. Let's hope it's the truth and not what that lady was saying.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So within
I believe that's
the-
a man.
And you're entitled to that belief.
Sure.
That woman, very upset, made very valid points.
Made
One of
zero
them-
valid points.
One of them being that if you go to the authorities and they ask you what you were wearing, whether you were as covered up as I am, or if I was wearing something with my cleavage hanging out to here, unfortunately, people within law enforcement will say or insinuate that you had what's coming to you because of what you were wearing. That is one of the compounds that come with it. Rape culture.
Any statistical bearing to substantiate that claim?
Can you elaborate more?
Well, you just indicted our entire police force. So, do you have any statistics that would show that rape is dismissed and cops say if you wore a short skirt, you deserve it? Because the statistics that I've looked at, rapists are actually convicted at the same rate as all other violent criminals, even more.
And that's great that there's a conviction rate for that. And I'm sorry, I don't have the stats on me right now. And what I've read of legitimate research and what I know of, and it's not about that. It comes down to that should never be insinuated within any context of a woman saying that she was assaulted or raped. It should not be invited in for you to insinuate that what one was wearing had anything to do with the matter.
I would never do that. I don't know that police do that.
It's pretty well documented by women.
Where?
Many people in this country. I'm sorry, I can't come up with that right now for you
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Well, I think that matters.
It does matter. And
I think
I'm
it matters to have those resources because statistically
Yeah.
it's not reflected.
And what statistics tell you differently?
Well, all statistics that we have available to us as far as reported rapes, how often rape occurs, trials for rape, and convictions.
From which sites?
FBI and DOJ.
Okay,
And RAIN.
Yeah, and I'm sure that if you want to
RAIN
look up statistics.
actually
I know what RAIN is.
Okay.
I know what RAIN is.
So they all reflect that.
Okay.
Was that mansplaining?
No, just you sounding like a bit of an ass.
Okay.
No offense.
Yeah.
No offense.
Contrary to our friend there previously.
Oh, I'm not saying that how they came up and screamed at you was acceptable, because that's not going to create a cohesive conversation at all.
You just
really
excuse
doesn't.
the behavior.
I do not.
You just excuse the behavior, and that's not.
If you're going to let me finish my sentence.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you just spoke in a paragraph, and then I responded. So, I'll let you continue.
Okay.
But I would like to speak at some point.
Oh, thank you for letting me speak, and I will happily let you speak in a moment. But in regards to that incident, since we want to continue bringing it up, when a woman says that, woman or male, however you see her, I see her as woman, when they have said, I was raped 4 times, that is excruciating for any person. And to publicly say that, no woman should have to scream in the streets that she was raped, and
that person didn't have to scream.
No, they didn't, but they felt that the need to, and that was extremely painful for that person. That was very hard for that person, and I respect that, how difficult that was for that person.
Okay.
And I wanted to give that person a hug, and they wanted to walk off, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You know, what usually happens, that's an example of female privilege there. Because if that's a man, we treat them very differently, and I'm sure you're aware of this.
Oh yeah, it's not
There's
fair.
accountability between men.
Oh, absolutely.
That isn't the same case with women. Men don't get in men's faces and behave that way because there's fear of ramifications. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So let me ask you this: define woman.
Woman.
Just because I think we're missing each other here, and I don't want us to, have misconnections. So that sort of spurred this. What is a woman when we're talking about men's privilege, rape culture? Define woman for me, so I don't get it wrong.
Well, a woman is any person who defines herself as. If you're looking at biologically speaking, a woman is someone who has female parts. Her anatomy is that of a vagina, and having just female parts. And then for me, I know I'm a cisgender female. I know this about myself.
Okay.
But it's not about, it doesn't matter what I define myself as. I ask others what they define themselves as.
Well, because you said biologically female parts. Obviously, our friend there wouldn't have that. So would that be included? Okay, but that's your definition of it.
That's one definition of it.
What's your definition of it? So that way I'm not stepping over any bounds. What's your definition?
Any person who uses the pronouns she, and who identifies as such, I respect what they identify themselves as. I do not ask them what their parts are. I do not, now if there's a conversation about who's going to be able to bear children, I will be able to because of what's,
well, I also think it matters, right, because we'll be discussing statistical realities, data that would separate men and women. And so I think it's important that we agree on what would be defined as a woman versus a man. So you're defining it that way. I would tell you the data, then the statistics that I present, maybe you find to be completely invalid because they always include biological women. So, okay, I would like to continue the idea of rape culture. I'd like to stay with the United States, if that's okay, because I would agree with you that there are rape cultures elsewhere across the globe, and I think that's a real problem. In the United States, though, the idea of rape culture, and perhaps you could define it for me, but as it's defined in academia on campus, is a culture, society where rape is prevalent and or permissible. Now, it sounds to me like you were insinuating that's the case because women aren't believed by the cops if they go forward with rape. Is that sort of your presupposition here as to why the United States is a rape culture?
Yes. Partially so. But as said before, there's a lot of other compounds that come with it. If there's law enforcement that doesn't help protect women, yes, that's absolutely going to permeate rape and it being a culture. But
and do you think that's the case here?
I think that's a large, significant reason why rape culture exists, why women are very afraid to go to the police because it's a traumatizing, it's just traumatizing to tell your friend that you were raped. It's traumatizing to go to law enforcement because they're going to ask you to tell you their story and then you're going to be asked to say it again and again. And when there's a single doubt because of a piece of clothing or the time at which you were out, whatever the case may be, and this is not just for women, this is for men too, because men are assaulted and raped as well, and it's even harder for
more
men.
than women, yeah.
I don't know the numbers on that, so
Yeah,
I
if you
can't
include
say.
the prison population.
Oh yeah, within prison, most definitely.
And that matters because men, we're talking about male privilege, are convicted and sentenced much more harshly for the exact same crime as women. So more men are incarcerated, and overall, men are raped more because of the incarceration rate. So that would be a female privilege.
Oh yeah, if a woman rapes and assaults someone, they should be incarcerated in the same manner which a man is.
Yeah.
Now, still, you're going to hear of more female cases, and not necessarily. You're going to hear more female cases coming out, and it's disappointing and very sad for men, especially in this country, who have been raped, because there's a masculinity component that comes with that, and there's a lot of reasons why men don't come out. But rape culture exists within that too, because a man who says another man was raped, that they may be told, well, you're gay, or you're this, or you're that, and unfortunately, that permeates rape culture when another man confides in another man and says, well, you're an F this, or you're whatever.
Well, a couple of things. So I think we need to look at a couple of components that you've claimed that I disagree with. The idea that rape is prevalent in the United States. Yeah, I would say no.
Okay.
So how, I guess, what define prevalent for me? Because for us to live in a rape culture would have to mean that rape is very common and we are permissible of it. Now, I know you think the cops and the legal system are. We can get to that. But before that, define what we considered prevalent for us to live in a rape culture.
As a very well-developed nation, considering all that we have access to in terms of technology and education and everything, looking at the Me Too movement, the percentage and the percentage of women who came out after so many women came out in solidarity, it was, no one could believe, oh my goodness, that many women in this country have been raped or assaulted.
It wasn't in the country, it
victims.
was in Hollywood.
Okay, and you're saying that Hollywood doesn't necessarily reflect
Yes,
other...
that is exactly what I'm saying.
Why so?
Because the rape rate is far higher in Hollywood than the United States. The rape rate in the United States, the incidence of rape is very low, and Hollywood is pretty high. So
within Texas, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio being the three largest cities for human trafficking, where rape and assault is chronic. Those are three major cities, and between the three cities, women, children, and men are carted off like cattle to be what we know, raped and assaulted and everything.
You're talking about like sex trafficking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's I'm a big proponent of the wall.
That's here in Texas, not Hollywood.
Yeah, no, it's still, we're talking about Texas. Texas still would have a far lower incidence of rape than Hollywood. And I do think, do you have the stats on Texas specifically? Maybe it is higher than the national average.
Well, I'm sorry, I was not prepared to come here today.
Oh, okay.
Not nearly as well as prepared as you are.
Well, I guess how often do you think rape occurs?
Well, pretty frequently, considering many of the women in my household, within my circles, as someone who has volunteered with Planned Parenthood, as someone who has invited those conversations amongst other women and men in her life, it is far more common than ever expected to be.
That's true. My wife volunteers at crisis pregnancy centers that are right opposite Planned Parenthood, sort of the opposite. But yeah, she understands that as well. She's worked with them. Well, I think the rates, the statistics, the data do matter, not the anecdotal. So for us to be a rape culture, how common would rape have to be? And then if you don't have an answer, we can sort of move on to the idea that it's dismissed.
I think it's very hard to say how common it is when people still, we don't, even what's accounted for today and the data that's out there today is not truly reflective of how common it is. People are scared. People are scared, especially if you're a black woman in this country. It's very scary because you're more likely to have been assaulted. You're more likely to experience police brutality, and that's just a black woman. But women in this country, men in this country are very scared to talk about this.
Now, to clarify, this section did get a bit redundant. It droned on, and we were discussing rape culture, which wasn't really the topic of the day, so I'm going to speed through a bit here, but the entire conversation is available unedited at loudwithpetter.com/mugclub. Trust me, you're not missing anything, but I wanted to provide full disclosure. Here we go. So, for example, we can go to, like, Kavanaugh. Do we believe every woman who makes an accusation?
I think...
And I use that because, since then we found out that all of them have been verifiably false. And that was a man whose reputation was smeared in the public eye. So there's a danger there as well.
I fully supported her going up on that stand.
Okay.
And
even though there's no evidence and they've recanted that it's not true.
No, I don't support Kavanaugh for a lot of reasons.
But we're not talking about a lot of reasons. We're talking about him being accused of the heinous crime of rape, which we now know to be false.
I still won't support Kavanaugh, and
That has nothing to do about supporting Kavanaugh. Can you defend a man's innocence against false allegations of rape?
I don't think any man should go to prison or anything like that if they didn't commit the crime.
Right, but should a man's reputation be tarnished if he didn't commit the crime at all?
Well,
should we believe Christine Blasey Ford? Should we believe Julie Swetnick?
As soon as a woman's reputation is not tarnished, then I will try not to tarnish a man's reputation. I'll put them to the same bar.
Is it immoral for someone who knowingly made up, fabricated a rape story, is it immoral for that person to do so publicly and ruin a man's life? Because that's what happened 3 times.
If it happened and that's her
It did.
story, I believe her story.
Okay, first off, there is no story, and the 2 people we're talking about, Ramirez and Swetnick, who made up the stories, recanted it, said it's not true. And Christine Blasey Ford only provided evidence of corroboration that was immediately discounted by the people who were questioned regarding the corroboration. So my question is, why do you believe her when there is no evidence and there is evidence to the contrary?
I believe her because I can't imagine what undeniable pressure she was under. And it's not an excuse for anyone to make up a story, but I do believe that her family was threatened, the people she loved were threatened, and it's an unbelievable amount of bravery for what she did.
It takes an unbelievable amount of bravery to lie about being raped?
For her to go to the stand in front of many privileged males who already discounted her story and to still go up there, I applaud her for that.
So if someone is knowingly lying about rape, you applaud them for it?
I don't know if her story was a lie.
It is. Okay, what about Julie Swetnick and Ramirez? They said it was a lie. Were they brave?
It's not the first time rape victims have recounted because of, unfortunately, tremendous amount of pressure. So I can't say that in those 2 instances, but it's not undocumented. It's documented for women to recant.
I will say this: rape is really, really bad. As a matter of fact, I would advocate for harsher sentences than we currently have for rape, and certainly compared to my home country of Canada, where a lot of them get off not scot-free, but they often get off with less than a 20-year sentence. I think that they should practically be buried beneath the railroad tracks. Rape, absolutely terrible, heinous crime, completely impermissible. I'm so glad that we prosecute these people and put them behind bars. That being said, can you say falsely accusing someone of rape? Bad.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Okay, good.
It's bad.
So we would both agree that what happened with someone like a Kavanaugh, or people who are accused of rape with no evidence, is a horrible thing. We need to put a stop to that as well, because that also diminishes real rape that happens.
Yeah.
That makes women more afraid to come forward.
Yes, unfortunately it does. I think what you're speaking to were very publicized occasions, and the lines between truth and reality very blurred. And
No, they're not. This is where we're going to disagree. They're not. And by the way, every high-profile case that has destroyed men's lives, for example, Duke Lacrosse, those women were believed. Do you think that was a good thing? That woman was believed?
I'm sorry, I don't know which particular
The Duke
case
Lacrosse team woman claimed she was raped. This was a big thing, and they considered it not only a hate crime, not only a sex crime, but a hate crime. UVA, Rolling Stone article, lives were destroyed because the women were believed. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Mattress Girl, Columbia. I'm sure you know Mattress Girl. The guy couldn't even go to his own graduation. We now know that was completely false. Good thing or bad thing?
I would love to give you 400 other examples that are...
I don't need to. Those, good or bad, that women came forward with no evidence and were
I'm not familiar
believed.
enough with the details to say yes or no. And I won't give you a yes or no answer.
Okay, let's assume I'm not lying. Are you familiar with Mattress Girl, UVA, or Duke Lacrosse? Because these are the highest profile rape cases before the Me Too Harvey Weinstein, right? And they all were proven false. So that was because women were believed, just like in Kavanaugh's scenario, without any evidence. And this is, by the way, the reason for this is under the guise of a rape culture. And so under the guise that men should feel guilty and we should believe all accusers, several people's lives were destroyed with completely fabricated accusations of rape. Those instances, UVA, Duke Lacrosse, Mattress Girl at Columbia, Brett Kavanaugh. Good thing or bad thing that women were believed when it turned out they fabricated it?
With the exception of Kavanaugh, I'm sorry, I'm still not going to agree with you on that one.
Okay.
Okay. For those other cases, I can only say that I'm sorry for anyone's lives who were destroyed, who were innocent, and for all the women who felt to recant, perhaps because of pressure undue pressure by university systems, by law enforcement. I give my
No.
my
This has
heart
nothing
out
to do
to
with
them.
recant. Let's not try and soften it. If I can say rape bad, rape accusations bad. But there's only one of us here advocating believing claims without evidence, and that's yourself.
I believe in evidence. I believe in various forms of evidence.
Okay. And according to what you've said here, and this is just we're going to disagree, you think that a claim is valid evidence.
I think a claim is something that should be heavily considered with hopefully evidence, but it is.
But a claim with no evidence should be.
I think we should still try to fight. I think we should still try to make a case.
Okay, but if there is no evidence
And we still
and there's
keep
a claim,
going.
so you still
Yes.
continue what?
I'll still continue fighting, and I'll still.
If a woman comes forward with a claim of rape with no evidence whatsoever, what do you do? What should the
Keep
legal
fighting.
system do?
I'm sorry, I can't say I have a solution for that. Put me on the spot, because I know that's the goal here.
No, it's not the goal. I'm not
is the goal.
understanding where you're coming from.
It is the goal. You think I have to have an absolute opinion, and that I can't have perhaps an in-between opinion. You think I have to, because I say I believe in rape culture, that I want to convict all men and say that any man who looks at a woman sideways, that I need them convicted. You want me to have an absolute opinion on things that are very gray areas, and I won't do it.
I don't think that's a gray area. If I can say rape is bad, I believe it should be just as
Rape
easy
is
for you
bad.
to say a rape accusation, a false rape accusation with no evidence is bad.
I think that's bad, but I'm not going to negate a claim either. I'm not going to throw out a claim. I won't do it.
So what do you do with a claim?
Sorry, I
If
didn't
there's
come.
no evidence and there's evidence, no, this
I'm not-
matters because if we're
it
talking
does
about a
matter.
rape culture,
It
how do
does
we?
matter.
Right now, we handle rape as we do other crimes. That requires a preponderance of evidence, and rape is a very infrequent crime in comparison to other crimes with a similar conviction rate. By the way, men are raped more. So I have a problem with rape. But if you are insinuating that there is a rape culture, that rape is more prevalent than it statistically is, and that all claims should be believed, I am asking you, what do we do if there is a claim with no evidence, and in Kavanaugh's case, or Columbia Mattress Girls case, or UVA or lacrosse, evidence to the contrary, what do we do?
I think you should find evidence that corroborates stories, because it's not uncommon for one person to experience that, others to have experienced that.
Sure.
And to look at what are the university's stances on someone who is raped, because there are some campuses that will highly discourage you going to the police. How well documented are there cases of rape or this or that? How well documented or lack of documentation, or what slipped under the rug because of reputation purposes? So it starts from like looking at university systems or state laws, and looking at it from the very smallest minute side of things to the larger grand scheme of things.
I don't understand what that means.
So if we collect 100 pieces of anecdotal evidence where one woman and 100 others say that this man or woman did this to me, it's anecdotal evidence.
Yes. Let me explain to you why that should be discounted, and why testimony is the least reliable form of evidence. Do you
Even
realize?
after 100 people?
Yeah, let me tell you why. Do you realize that what you just did is you encourage a system of those in power? So in other words, right now, I could accuse you of a crime, and I could much more easily get 100 people to corroborate my story without any evidence, just because I have an audience. Does that make it any more valid? I could say that you raped me here. There's no proof.
It makes it valid. Now, once again, I'm not discounting that, yes, evidence is important, but it weighs into, if 100 people said I raped you, then
Right.
my golly,
I could do that very easily.
Something happened to where the lines between you and I got really blurred, and that needs to be looked into. That needs to be examined. If that's the case, what happened between you and I? And yeah, for damn sure, please, someone, take us to a courtroom, and I want, if they all say the same thing, then fine. But that needs to be examined. That needs to be examined. What happened?
Okay, so your standard is just as long as people make the claim, then we need to treat it as valid as any other evidence. I just
think
disagree.
we should weigh heavily into that.
I
So.
think it's a very dangerous proposal. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. We have a current legal system that I think is a much better standard bearer than X amount of people said someone did
Unless-
something.
unless-
Because that's what led to witch burning, and that's
Yeah.
what led to, women being afraid of coming forward in the first place.
And innocent to
Like in
proven guilty
Islamic
is
societies
great.
where you require a certain amount of witnesses,
Yeah.
it's going to lend itself to men being able to gather more
Innocent
witnesses.
until proven guilty is a good system by which we lead by, and I understand that if I lived in another country where guilty until proven innocent, yes, we'd be rotting in a jail. But I know of I know of a story just recently, and I'm sorry I can't say the name of this individual.
Come on, that's inappropriate, sweetheart.
You feel better?
Oh, are you offended by what I said?
No, I just don't think it's necessary. Aren't you just feeding into it?
You do realize that's a violent crime, correct?
You're fine.
Ah, so because there's no damage done, it's
You're
fine.
fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
Understood.
Just recently-
That doesn't bother you. What if that were a man? Because that's a woman. Wouldn't bother you.
Not this moment.
Okay.
I
I think you might need to check your own privilege and bias. If you think that behavior is acceptable, if you think someone whipping something at somebody because they disagree with them is okay because I'm fine.
There was 100 Trump supporters here, and I didn't say a word to them. I smiled at them, waved,
There
and
couldn't be less relevant. We've had someone who's come up and committed verbal assault, which is known as battery, and then
Okay.
actual assault.
and if I went up and kicked someone
Sorry.
and threw someone, yeah, it probably wouldn't be okay. But
That's not okay.
oh no, it's not okay.
No, it's not okay. But you seem more offended at me calling the man sweetheart.
No, I just think goading a person isn't necessary.
Well, I'm not goading. They're already down the street because that man is a coward. So I know you think they're brave. I think throwing something and running away, not very brave.